go there. Okay. So, are there any questions from the audience to our speakers? Please, Andrea. Upstairs. Okay, that's fine.
Thank you. I would have a question to Elisabeth. I know it in the talk it was kind of a hypothesis on steroids to say that the gut is stupid. Because when I'm thinking of Gigerenzer, where he's always a big advocate also of trusting your gut, and says, I think he coins it heuristics. So where do you think it's a good way to use these heuristics or to trust your gut? In which situations?
In which situations should we use our gut feeling rather than our brain? We do it overly much anyway. So I think the challenge is more to keep our gut feeling in check. Because so every day is actually built up of a huge line of tiny little decisions. And if we had to reflect on every single one of them, we wouldn't get around to the big problems. So I think we are employing our gut feeling anyway. So I don't think I should recommend it extra because we're doing it anyway. But quite the opposite. I think we should be aware of what our gut is leading us to. And so my caution towards the gut feeling is especially because some people seem to think that our gut is actually the source of wisdom. So in German there is the Hausverstand beispielsweise. So we think that we are actually, when we trust our intuition, that this is somewhat more intelligent and more informative than when we really sit down and do the hard work. Because switching on our brain is the hard part in our cognitive reasoning. And therefore, I don't think I would go so far as to say we should use it because we're doing it anyway, but we should sometimes look at what our gut is actually taking, or where our gut is taking us to.
Thank you. Andrea?
Thanks a lot for all your talks, Marion especially. I'm really interested, so I love this timeline idea. And I'd love to see it, at least for my hometown Villach, better for the whole of Austria. So how's the chance to get it for Austria, what you showed us here for Graz? Any plans or any projects you know of out there?
Thank you for your question. It's really good to hear that. There was a research project a few years ago about the Französische Cadastre in Carinthia. There were 2 books. I will give the information to Anita and she can spare it with you. And I did something like I did in Graz for Spital. And it was really interesting, and I did a comparison between Spital and Graz. And it was really fun to do that. Yes, Villach is also a very interesting town. It's not it is not necessary to do that with a big city. Almost the smaller cities are sometimes more interesting than the bigger ones. That's why I did not wanted to do it with Vienna, for example.
Thank you. Are there any more questions? Yes, please.
Thank you all for your presentations. I would have the question for the second speaker. I forgot your name, please forgive me. So you said that you used neural networks. Could you please give us a hint? What software did you use? Was it like TensorFlow? If it was TensorFlow and neural network, how many layers did you use? Because it doesn't seem like a simple model to do what you did. And also in in your ongoing work, you're planning to use clustering. What clustering algorithms are you planning to use? Thank you.
Right, so let me go back a few years before. Yeah, so I programmed my first neural network without using any machine learning framework. So I did everything from scratch. I had to do gradient checking and everything, make sure everything is working. I now use some machine learning frameworks, TensorFlow, PyTorch, whatever that might be. In any case, I insist on programming my own neural networks. I think that this helps me better understand the algorithm, and I'm really interested in the materiality of the algorithms. And for clustering algorithms, I think it was k-means. There are papers on these pieces, so you can find more technical details. But it's a few years back now, so I don't recollect all the. But yeah, you can find very detailed descriptions of the layers and so on. Yeah, hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Another question up there, please.
Yes, thank you. Marion, thank you for the interesting talk and the explanations. I was curious, you mentioned that you presented your results also to the decision makers in the city of Graz about the social housing developments and the actual race of citizens. Was there any reaction? How did they implement this information into further decisions, or do you know anything about that?
Something with that information. They put it into the next discussion with the other parties. But what I did not realize before, there is, it is only allowed to put I don't know how to say, the money thing is that problem, because you are not allowed to spend that much money for building and social housing projects and buying the site for that. And that is why some districts of Graz had not that much social housing projects. Some of them they had or they have our historical projects, and they will be also there in future. But for further projects, it's not that easy because the costs are that high, so they have to stop some projects. But what they realized is that they I don't know how to say, it's a bit complicated, because they put social housing projects into districts who are not that safety, and so they put some problems in there, and that's what they did not in now. It's really interesting for them and for me to show that in that map so everybody could understand it. Thank you for your question.
Thank you. Are there any more questions? No? Oh, here is one. Oh, we have one from the chat. So one from our online audience. So we also have the hybrid version. And so please, Manuela.
Yeah, I will just read it out loud because there are currently coming more comments to it. So the question goes to Elisabeth. It started out how, about the gap that was mentioned between every gender's expectations for themselves. So do you have tips to handle this in work environment? And then she continues that, is there a trick for a woman to keep a credible impression without having that I can do it all attitude? Sorry, I don't understand the question. Is there a trick for a woman to keep a credible impression? That's the key, I think.
all the tiny questions for me, right? So how to handle this sexual dimorphism in how we talk about problem-solving capacities in the workplace? I think it's awareness that is the biggest issue here. So if you're aware that there is a sexual dimorphism, I think it might just open your eyes, and don't use this sexual dimorphism, this was very beautiful in the artwork, by the way. So remember when they took off their masks. This is a topic that really, it haunts me, because I do research on big populations, and then I find, for example, gender differences. What does this mean for our everyday life? Does this mean we have to treat women like this and men like this? No way, right? Because whenever we find sexual dimorphism, there's a huge overlap between the sexes. So I think what this just highlights is that people are diverse, and that we should not be too quick to jump to any conclusions, but rather take a closer look and actually observe. So it just means do the work. So when you have, you know, these repeated interactions, there is a problem, people talk about problem solving capacities in a certain manner, then you also need to do a work and track what did they say in the beginning, and how did they then perform in the problem solving actually, and then actually form an opinion about that person, but not stop at that for the first self-assessment. So that's the workplace. And the second thing, how does a woman keep a credible appearance despite being able to do so many things which nobody believes, right? That's a really hard one, right? Because I think the angry women and everything, there are so many prejudices around when women behave like men, and this is really deep-rooted because the same facial expression will be perceived as with a different meaning if a woman shows it and the man shows it. So this is really a hard thing. So I think still feel yourself. That's very important. So don't perform, because you cannot perform credibly 24/7. So I don't think that's a good thing to just pretend to be a guy and then everything will be good. No, it won't. Find your own way, and don't be afraid to talk about things you don't like. So I think especially for women who are in mainly male-dominated fields, it's also important that you voice your uncomfort or your discomfort, right? So there might be some jokes, there might be some really nicely intended but completely counterproductive things happening. If this happens, just say so. And the best thing is if you can mention that at the point where it's not a problem yet, so where it's still a slight discomfort, because then you're still able to talk about it in a light and easy manner, maybe even make a joke about it, and then you can raise awareness, because many people do things without even considering what this might actually cause in their others. If we wait too long, then emotions get high. And emotions are another aspect of the gut feeling. If emotions get too high, our brains have a really, really hard time functioning properly. So as long as things are still manageable and small, we can solve them easily. But if we wait too long, they really manifest as problems and they can actually hinder you. I hope.
Well, thank you very much, Lisa. It was like the amen to all our prayers. So also what I apply normally when my gut feeling gets too strong is the 24 hours rule before I react. But saying this, I would like to thank you all for your great presentations and your great input, and also for being a role model to us. And again, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is beautiful. For all of you who are far away, this is local and it's healthy, and it will make us even better people than we already are, because we're not that good. Thank you.
Thank you.